As a Pokemon card collector, I, Donter Collects, have always wondered what the depths of the artists of the Pokemon TCG have to offer, and gaining that sort of knowledge is part of why I'd like to share it upon you, the viewer, to figure out which artist truly speaks to you. This is Pokemon Artist Review. This series is dedicated towards looking at what makes the artwork of each individual Pokemon TCG artist so special and distilling it into a video analysis format. Stick till the end of the video to see if this artist becomes a new favorite, and subscribe to see more Pokemon Artist Review to help me reach my new goal of 1,000 subscribers. I think we can do it. If there's an artist who you really want to see reviewed, then feel free to let me know down below. Welcome to the Pokemon Artist Review. In today's video, we'll be talking about Dsuke. Dsuke started illustrating cards in the set Temporal Forces, released March 22nd, 2024, and has illustrated 20 total cards so far. They don't have any reprints, so I won't be talking about that. Dsuke has a really nice style. Thick black lines dot their cards, and all of their illustrations are heavily stylized, making it easy to tell their artwork from a crowd of other Pokemon artists. Although this artist is still pretty fresh into their journey of making Pokemon cards, I thought I'd showcase their fantastic work, and hopefully they'll continue to impress. These are the criteria I'll be analyzing to enhance the best parts of Dsuke's artwork. Firstly, I'll be talking about their colors. Secondly, I'll be talking about their outlines. And finally, I'll be talking about their creativity. For my first point, I wanted to talk about Dsuke's colors. Let's just take their most recent card for example, being the Grafaiai from Mega Brave. This card features the Pokemon sitting atop a box, which is colored with blue water and green mountains. The trash can to the left of the Pokemon is a nice blue color, and the green railings above it. A case of bottles is bright pink right next to the Pokemon, and gray is heavily featured in terms of the piping as well as the air conditioning unit, as we see reddish bricks and a beige building in the back there, with a gradient from white to blue sky in the back. Suffice to say, in just the background alone, there's a lot of stuff going on. Not to mention the Pokemon, who stands out nicely as the focal point of the illustration. It's really cool to see how subtly the artist incorporates all these different colors to make one coherent illustration. For our other example, I'd like to pull up the Chi-Yu Scarlet and Violet promo card. Although the majority of the illustration is filled with orangey lava, the Pokemon still stands out nicely from the environment around it, mostly due to that lightish yellowish glow that the Pokemon emits, and the red accents on the Pokemon. The brownish rocks all over the Pokemon are also so nicely separated from the raging lava. And finally, we have the Pokemon's eye things. I'm not exactly sure what those are supposed to be, but I really love how they transition from a bluish green to white, and I really like how separated it is from the rest of the card, not being too invasive anywhere else. Dsuke has wonderful colors that always fit the illustration, never feeling too cluttered, and always having some nice meaning to their placement. Next, I wanted to mention Dsuke's outlines. In their Team Rocket's Rattata, we can see how they really do their outlines, with a thin black outline used for the majority of the card. On the Pokemon itself in this illustration, we see a very consistent black line used for the aspects of the card, but this very nice shading technique is used for the back of its hind leg, the middle of its tail, and the back of its front leg. This hatching technique makes the shadows of the Pokemon really pop, which brings everything together nicely. When it comes to the environment of the illustration, we see that the boxes have looser outlines, not being forced to fully convey lines, with some spotty areas, and a dotty style is employed on the sides of the boxes, which not only makes them stand out, but it also nicely differentiates every single box from each other. Finally, on the piping, a pretty consistent lining is used throughout, with these little black lines being used to convey sort of angles on the pipes, from what I assume, and not making them feel so flat. Although I'm talking about their outlines in this section, their highlights and shadows really add that evil aesthetic that I'm really seeing from this card, so I thought I'd point that out. Looking at a more complex example of their outlines, we have the Aggron from Twilight Masquerade. A card like this is why you really need to look at every single card from a set in depth, because normally most people would miss out how exquisitely detailed this card really is. I love how in this illustration, the outlines on the Pokemon itself have room to be spotty, almost messy in some places. Like the top of the head, with that little jutting line, showcasing not only movement, but also action. The way that the small little black lines are used throughout the Pokemon's armor pieces draws your attention to different pieces of metal, showcasing possible scratches and nicks, and the environment around the Pokemon, such as the hills and the tree in the back, have relatively simple outlines, being pretty consistent throughout. The final thing I'd like to comment on would be these incredible dust particles all around the Pokemon. We have the same dotty style that we saw with the boxes in the last card, but flying all around the Pokemon. Instead of a typical black outline on the dust, we see this really nice and thin dust-colored outline, almost beigey, which looks really good, and it makes the dust not a pivotal part of the card, as it twists and forms to the concaves of the illustration, making for a really detailed illustration of an incredible Pokemon. Not to mention the little light glint on one of the horns, this card is jam-packed with detail and wonder. Finally, I'd like to point out Dsuke's creativity. In their Milcery illustration from Stellar Crown, we see the Pokemon floating along as it's surrounded by sweets of all kinds, shapes, and sizes. The room itself of the Pokemon is pinkified, showcasing this nice warm and inviting energy that makes every candy aspect of the card jump out at the viewer nicely. Not to mention the Pokemon's white appearance, which makes itself stand out from that pink kitchen that I was just talking about. I love the variety of sweets that Dsuke presents in the illustration. It's really creative to have stuff like a Pokeball bottle, and it's nice to have smaller things like a Pikachu cookie cutter, Ponyta and Jigglypuff stickers, and even a little Pokeball thingy dangling off of one of the bottles. It really feels like, with this illustration, Dsuke spared no detail in making this kitchen feel as used and alive as possible, with this grand banquet laid out for this Pokemon to enjoy. I also really like the little glimmers on the card too. It adds to that cute vibe nicely. Another card I'd like to point out would be the Larvitar from Journey Together. This Pokemon's expression is this wonderful look of wonder as it looks at the moon in the distance. Larvitar's main thing is to eat dirt, so showcasing it next to two piles of it makes this card tell a story without having to shove it in your face, and the little clump of dirt that the Pokemon is holding on to only adds to that idea. The dark blue used for the sky looks phenomenal, and the rock face that the Pokemon stands in front of is twisting and miraculous. I really adore how it bends and rises, with those yellowish highlights. It makes every individual rock stand out so nicely. I genuinely think that something like this is one of the best looking Larvitar cards that we've ever seen before. Subtle details, a nice simple story of a Pokemon looking out in the distance, personality, and just a really wonderful illustration. Dsuke knocked this one out of the park. Now, for my favorite card from Dsuke. It is honestly tough to pick, because so many of their cards fill my heart with joy. But if I had to pick one, I'd say that my favorite is probably their debut card, being the Scyther from Temporal Forces. I really adore how the Pokemon is face first on the card, running straight towards the viewer. I like how the location is one of those areas in Scarlet and Violet, with the bamboo forest. I don't remember the name of it, but I always enjoyed that area. Scyther is stylized so nicely with a gritty effect. The slashing strikes look really awesome with that neon glow. Dsuke has such a fantastic style that if you said any of their cards were your favorite, I definitely understand. And that was Dsuke. Looking further into Dsuke's artwork, it's really opened my eyes to how fantastic most of their illustrations are, and I really hope to see more crazy cards from them in the Mega Evolution era, because this artist has such a wonderfully defined style that makes all their cards really feel special. If you enjoyed this video, let me know by liking and commenting, as well as considering to subscribe to my channel. I cover everything you need to know about Pokemon card artists. If you want to see more of these kinds of videos, I have a playlist on my channel for the Pokemon Artist Review. And with that, I hope you all have a fantastic day, and I'll catch you next time.